Okay, thank you everybody for coming. This is Prolific Press's reading event for April 24th, 2021, and we're going to begin with Lynette Esposito.
My turn?
And I'm going to go ahead and start muting other people. And I'll try to get to the call-in, the people who called in on the phone in short order.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, it's Lynn Esposito from Mount Laurel, New Jersey. I wanted to read something that's a more peaceful and uplifting, and y'all know why. So the first one is untitled. This was a poem that was in one of the poetry quarterlies. It's untitled. If I am but one lighted pixel, what a difference I could make in a darkened corner.
Oh, you got muted somehow.
Okay.
Yep. We heard your first one. We did hear that. Go ahead and read a second one if you have.
Alrighty. The second one is Monday, 8 a.m. A touch of mercy is the most tender feather an angel can grace you with as he passes by on his way to work. It's done.
Well, do you mind sharing any motivation for that second piece?
I don't know. I was working on it and it didn't come right. And I had to read something today. So I thought it was kind of a nice image of angel feathers touching you and making you feel better. And I thought, what time did you need to feel better than 8 a.m. on a Monday? So that's why.
Yeah, that's nice. I'm noticing in the slush piles a lot of angelic imagery these days. Difficult times for a lot of families. James Bethel. You have to unmute yourself.
Did you just call me?
Yes. James Allen. James Allen Bethel.
Okay, not me.
Not you. We'll get to you.
Okay. I have two poems about poetry from a collection of mine entitled Unless Rain, to be published this fall by Chervena Barba Press out of Somerville. The first one is called Dangerous Dan. I once thought poetry could change the world. It doesn't. Sent with good intentions out there on the road to hell, if one happens to get past the daily censors, starting a little fire, causing a little tiny dust up, they just shoot you full of their own version of venom as if to top off your antidote with more disease. The only reason to write a poem is to cure yourself. Maybe that's why poetry is dangerous. This one's called Poet, for lack of a better title. Where did I ever get the idea that I was a poet? And what's the word for a derisive snort in response to such a notion? What good are words? As tools for the search, they but turn up other words. In other words, they are but means. And it is the end I seek. Perhaps I'm too much the anthropologist. Dirt is dirt, regardless of the size of the shovel. To seek at all is pretense, notwithstanding past tense. As ghastly as any tomb's content is this: pretending I am lost, so to conspire a search, presuming something needs be found I have not. How does one write a poem about silence? One does not write a poem about silence. All poems are about silence.
I didn't see that last stanza coming. It's an interesting group of poems there because it calls into question, what is poetry good for?
Right.
I would like to just brag. Is that okay? Just for a minute. My son is in the doctorate program in Michigan, and he's studying. He's doing therapy he's getting to be a doctor, a therapist, and I was recently invited to a meeting for him because they're considering using poetry as part of patient feedback for their therapy, sort of kind of a I don't want to pin it down and say exactly and then be wrong, but I think it's kind of like taking the language that people that are having problems give to the therapist, and then maybe sort of the way that we work with erasures, taking lines and stuff and giving them then feedback so that they can see their change in a poetic and impactful way. And I've always believed that poetry is so much meaning and power. Especially even therapeutic. A lot of people, they write those diary poems, they write poems to people who have passed away, they write poems to, you know, honor their parents and their families, and it's a beautiful thing, and could just so much power in asking those questions, James. What is it good for? What does it do? And I think perhaps this group of people more than others understand the real power of this art. Mary Gunn.
Thank you, Glenn. I have two poems to read. The first one is a haiku that received honorable mention in the Vancouver Cherry Blossom Festival in 2016 in the international section. It's just 6 words. This side for the Sakura, commuting. And the second one is a tanka that was published by Inwood Indiana Press in a book called Tracks. Under a railway bridge, sleeping bag and food cartons on the cobble path, hurrying to an event, yes, glancing over shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, glancing over shoulder. That's nice. It was a nice payoff.
Scary.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny. As a child, being in Inwood, there were these little railroad. I don't know. They're made out of iron. These little supports where the railroad crews would come by and they would change the sign. Like make it red or green or whatever, and it meant something to them, and I don't know what it meant, but it was those little trusses or whatever you want to call them, those little posts, they were right up against the rails. I mean, pretty much as close as you could get without the train actually hitting them. And we would crawl up there when we were like 10 years old and dare each other to stay up there while the train went by, and it would rumble through you and the thing would sway, and it was very exciting. And that Tracks issue might have been the best-selling Inwood, Indiana issue we ever did, and that was fantastic. Thank you, Mary, so much. Your work is
Thanks,
always
Len.
so solid. Clarice.
Oh, thank you.
Clarice, you'll have to unmute your mic.
Okay. Okay, I'm Clarice Samuels from Hudson, Quebec. I have 2 poems. Each one's a page long. I hope everyone is patient. It's not a haiku. I do write haikus though. So this one is called Outline of Shadowy Trees. It was very recently published in Poetry Quarterly. I think 2020 was that issue. I'm not sure, December maybe. Anyway, okay. Outline of shadowy trees. A mad moon descends in the west. This is my home, not the home where we raise the children, where now someone else's children play in the yard. where we buried our beloved gerbils and a white canary. The sky is closer here, and the stars are reachable. Mars is redder, Venus brighter, and Jupiter more protective. Eternity descends here. Creation reveals itself. A nanosecond on Earth is a laughable event, and a lifetime is like a nanosecond that we waste with war and senseless words. The animals are like children, yet we betray their trust. We are dancers on a flimsy stage, making grotesque gestures, wearing blank masks made of putty and mud. No one may see our faces. As we gesticulate wildly, we think we are beautiful. In a lemon yellow gown, eating red meat for fine dining in a restaurant in Tokyo. We are absurd. We are mad. It will all come to nothing. A spider's web glistened in the sunlight. When I wiped it out with one hand, he rebuilt it overnight. I saw him eating a honeybee trapped in his handiwork. He is much more ambitious than he looks, ruthless and unrelenting, with no thought for eternity. He does not ask, why am I here, but glowers at me and waits patiently, for he knows me and speaks with the silence of an extraterrestrial. My will cannot be undone, he says. Don't you dare. End of poem. Okay, and you want me to read my second poem too, right?
Sure, yeah, please.
The Mad Tea Party, that was published also in Poetry Quarterly back in the summer of 2017. Okay, curious, you were so curious how I must have tortured you with logic and reason and theoretical discourses. I stared at you over sake and sushi. We talked for hours, like Alice and the Mad Hatter. You were a riddle that I was supposed to solve. For indeed, why is a raven like a writing desk? And how were you so like a white rabbit? I carefully painted the roses red, just so the world would present itself in terms that you could understand. But the Queen of Hearts was the wild card, the one you were hiding up your sleeve. Not that I ever wanted to be your love. You charmed me only momentarily, and I could solve all the riddles of the world over sashimi and daikon, just a radish, I was told, and Platonic philosophy, while needing nothing else. Yet I could see my antagonist hovering about. The Queen of Hearts was smiling at me like a Cheshire cat, and when I looked at you, her grin hovered over your head. She was always there. There were many of them, for you were fickle and strange. How did you ever find the time to savor the shrimp tempura? How many bowls of miso soup did you lift to your chin while another Alice shrank before your very eyes? Finally, a kind waiter took pity on me. He gave me a plate of shiitake mushrooms with a lump of wasabi on the side, and I grew and I grew. I went right through the ceiling while the Queen of Hearts laughed uproariously and a caterpillar puffed on a hookah. End of poem.
All right. Thank you, Clarice. I've read your work for years now,
Yeah.
and I have, and it's wonderful to hear you read it and to realize that a lot of the cadence in the way that you read it is how I hear it when I read it. So nice. I love your line breaks and the layers of meaning and how well that you put things together.
Thank you.
If you guys have those publications, go back and check out her work. It's really good. She's very, very good.
Thanks. I love publishing in Poetry Quarterly.
Well, we like having you. Thank you so much for that. All right, I'm gonna skip ahead here. I like to grab the people that have called in on the phone. James, Nicola. James, are you with me?
Yes, I started talking and everything, and then realized you needed me to press *6. Yeah, here I am. You can hear me now?
Yeah, we've got you.
Wonderful. Here we are. The first poem I'm going to do is to honor. I heard earlier this month it was the second anniversary of an event in Paris that you'll remember, and so this poem is called Jump, and just to gloss two things. Orly, of course, is one of the airports of Paris, and what was the other thing? There was one other thing I looked at it earlier to gloss, and I forget what it was. So we'll have to just get there. Jump. And this is from Out of Nothing, Poems of Art and Artists, which is a collection of mine from Shanty Arts with pictures in it. Jump. The man who tried to jump, I never saw quite. Intermittent voices from the crowd in front of Notre Dame that morning yelled in English or American and loud enough for God to hear the word jump. By the time I'd gotten there, the mass had swelled. I don't believe he heard them. Then the law showed up and coaxed him duly from the tower where he'd been teetering about an hour. My first day in Europe. I had arrived at Orly shy of dawn. By Notre Dame it was the beginning of the end, and soon the crowd dispersed. The soul concerned survived, and none below could say the fellow's name, but he'd been brought in safely from the rim, and there would be another day for him. And when I walked inside, the chimes rang noon as if in joy or celebration. True, they did this daily, hourly. Still, when I looked up in the expanse of must and light and heard the echoes, plaintive as a sigh, of steps and whispers, I was overawed, my first cathedral ever, see, and knew why centuries ago believed in God. The vastness, the design of day and night co-mixed, the ogives to enhance the height, all made me, us, the sort just saved, so small I never thought of him again till now. In my private cathedral, shy of dawn, when night's soft nothing opens into all, and that day I at last reflect upon, how looking up turns one within, and how a soul can jump and land some later age, not on the stone-paved square, but on a page. And the second one is a very short one, and it's in another poem of mine, a collection of mine from Shanty Arts called, oh no, it's also from Out of Nothing. I'm sorry, it's in the same one, but it's the sort of flagship poem of a collection of mine that just got accepted by Hiraeth Publishing, and it's called Tower of Babel, Poems from the Apocalypse. So if you look up Hiraeth, if you want to send some speculative stuff to them, they'd be eager to hear it and see it, I'm sure. But this is a short one just called Tower. The Tower of Babel was never able to scratch or scrape the sky, but ever since then, ambitious men have been born again and try. Some trod the moon, some space, some soon shall set a foot on Mars. Thank goodness there is ample air for everyone and stars. And that was originally in Pennsylvania Review, which is on hiatus at the moment, but keep them in mind for the future. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you, James. And thanks for coming today. I really appreciate that. I'm going to let somebody sneak back in here. And then we're going to go on to Leonard here in a moment. I'm going to pause the recording for a moment. Hi, Leonard.
Afternoon, everybody. Leonard Lund, coming from just outside Chicago. It's National Poetry Month, and I'm doing my 8th annual 30-30 raising funds for children's cancer research. And being forced to be productive makes me think a lot about inspiration, makes me fall down a lot of rabbit holes. So these are two responses to those trips from this month. Pop quiz number 4. Answer as many as you feel the need to. Make your own answers to either choose from or from which to choose. 1. How many full moons does it take to replace a light bulb? 2. If a tree falls into a forest, where did it fall from? 3. Why did the tree leave the forest? 4. What secret do you keep from yourself? 5. If a poet stands on a street corner. 6. What questions do you wish you had known sooner? 7. Are there really any stupid answers? Extra credit short essay. What's the difference between a prompt and a question you don't yet know the answer to? This second one is a bit of Ars Poetica, and again, it's a bit of thinking about inspiration. I'm out in the arts world as a poet and a photographer and a short fictionist, and also as a historian, which is where my degrees are. So when I say art here, take it as broadly or as closely as you want to. Art and architecture. I think to be an artist, you have to love staircases, leading uncertainly or hopefully to some place while the view changes with each step. Each trick of lighting, the colors shifting with wear or cleaning. The same with windows, your medium of vision or word, the tossed salad of seasons and weathers and hours. And if your window's on a staircase, no king was ever richer. Doors are good, but require strength. You have to turn the universe some vague number of degrees in some unknown direction before you open one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Leonard. I like how familiar
Glenn, I didn't
your
hear
voice
that poem
is.
at all, and I don't know if anybody else could not hear it.
I heard it. Is anybody else having trouble? Raise your hand if you could not hear it. Raise your hand if you could hear it. Yeah,
I heard it.
okay. I think that that was just one of those fluky things. Can you hear me okay? Okay. All right. I was saying, Leonard, that your voice has this sort of familiarity to it. Sometimes when you read it, you kind of feel like I could have written that. You know, that's something that resonates with me. That's very powerful. Not everyone does that as well as you do, and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that. I think that for me at least, my voice as a poet is a conversational one rather than declamatory or formal or any of that stuff. And all these years I've learned to let that be reflected by how I make the word sound.
Yeah, I think you have that in common with some very good writers that I appreciate. Frederick Seidel, his earlier work kind of feels like yours a little bit. Mike.
Yep, okay, let me get them up here. I like to think of them as haiku, but sometimes they just come out as a short poem of nothing in particular. These are two I'm just working on that. The sun shines one way, the wind blows another, leaving me far from home. The other one, your smile today is the candle I shelter to brighten the dark. And they're two I've just been working on, so.
It's really nice. You know, I appreciate these short form poems so much. And I'm only saying this maybe not so much for this group as for other people who come and watch the video. When you see a short form poem like Mike's on the page, you approach that poem as though all of the blank space on that page is silence. And the words then speak from that silence. And that it just brings a certain amount of resonance to these shorter pieces that is it's beautiful. So sometimes they kind of ring a little louder when they're written on a page than when you say them. But as poets, we can sort of imagine that language on the pages. We're hearing the spoken word, and it, you know, it just brings it out, and it's really great. Keep it up. The short forms are sometimes harder than anything else to do really well, and you do them well. Denise Umans.
Thanks so much. Glenn, I just wanted to comment about your mention of poetry and therapy. I'm a speech therapist, and I just wanted to mention, I so agree with you. Poetry is so powerful as a therapeutic tool. So yeah, it's wonderful to use that. I wanted to read two poems which were published in Poetry Quarterly, both a few years ago. The first, I've been doing a lot of genealogy research. I'm from South Africa. I live in Boston, but I'm actually wintering in Scottsdale, Arizona now. This is the first poem. So I've actually gone back to a genealogy poem. This one's called Landslide, which are, you know, people from the old country. Dad's mother would have called him one of the Landslide, this doctor I met by chance. Those days they came to his father, the rabbi, to seek advice, sink their restless souls in familiar soil, soak in the guttural warmth of Yiddish, and rest, their weary mouths in the old country voice and patter. They sifted hands through the sands of shtetl life, played chess, laughed together at sayings long silent, a hidden code, between friends and huddled around a joke, or bit of gossip as if around a fire on a frigid night. Thus they revived, lives and lingo driven away by years, like a half-remembered poem enticed from the attic into the light, each word, a moth around its globe. Now, as if lightly tapped on the shoulder by a passing friend, I catch hints of my own accent, rich with sense of sandbox names and games. I notice his syllables stressed sideways, leaning, as mine are, as if we've been hobbling through words and a world askew these past years. I hear our long R's in can't, rounded lips in taut, and the way he says schedule with a quiet shh, as if someone may hear. I listen, behind his words for the pitter-patter of our own country, for lilts and echoes of a melody and rhythm lost, and I'm a child again, lighting upon a chosen blanket, soft and worn, the one dragged through the dust, like the past behind me, then smoothed against my face for comfort. That was published in 2017. The second one is a shorter poem from 2016 in Poetry Quarterly, and it's called Fall in New England. It's about my daughter experiencing fall when she was young. Her tender feet shuffle through maple, beech, and alder as she falls into a bed of color, gold, ochre, umber, copper, covering her tiny shoes. One by one, she adds leaves to her basket, chanting, red like my doll's dress, yellow like my Lego, orange like oranges. She circles her hands through foliage, leaves flying into the air, then waits, head back, while birds flutter down into her flowing hair as her laughter catches the fading light. I take her hand, and the wrinkle of winter follows us home.
Very nice. I remember that poem. Getting some feedback here. Hold on a second. Something just so wonderful with the colors, don't you think? the red and then the yellow, and you know that it's this sort of fall time, and the objects, the shoes and everything. It's so dainty. I think, don't we just love that about kids? The little hands and their little feet, you know. I remember buying my kids these little shoes. I mean, they were like this big, you know, and they lasted all of a week or 2 weeks, but it was such a, I don't know, a particular pleasure to see them on their little feet, and just wonderful. Thank you. I feel like I was there. That was nice. That was really nice. Sean O'Connor.
You woke me up. No, I was awake. Don't worry. I just kind of got startled when I heard my name. Hello, everybody from Tipperary in Ireland. Thanks for having me today. I was a psychiatric nurse in the 90s and worked for a while with young people who were inpatients and doing poetry. So your son is onto something very, very good. It's also, I suppose, my second pandemic, having worked in an AIDS ward when everybody died that came in. Nobody went out alive. So hence probably the slightly macabre subjects that I deal with. So I'll read two high one pieces. Thank you very much. This first one is called Nature Mort. It's an ekphrastic on a painting by an Irish painter. Nature Mort. They are dead, a hen and a cock pheasant on an end table. The female's head bent back, beak open and upward, as if startled in her last moment by the fact of her killing. The male's neck is twisted. His closed beak points down his back, eyes clenched. It comes to this, lying in a dying light, we used to be lovers. Thank you. And the second one is called Secrets. Mother cat, discarding the silent kitten from her noisy litter. Mary Dwyer died after giving birth in the grotto behind the closed church. It was during the first night she ever spent outside the house she was born in. They say she went there for help from the Virgin Mary, that she died in the arms of God, that her baby went straight to heaven. The forensic pathologist didn't say any of these things. She told the coroner that Millie had severed the umbilical cord with the scissors and tied it successfully, that she and her child were alive together for perhaps 4 or 5 hours, that they were found in an embrace, drying in May sunshine, the rag doll on a clothesline, both eyes missing.
Wow, that was so powerful. The resonance, the way that you end those with such power, kind of reminiscent of that School of New York poets from like this late 50s to early 60s, and they put those little envoys at the end of their poems, and then they would just sometimes not even be about the poem. They would write about a lake or something, and then there would be a sort of a mismatched image, but somehow it worked. And yours were certainly not like that, but there's just resonance. Like it just feels like you don't know when to applaud because you want to feel it just a moment longer. It's very good. I like that a lot. Just so I don't startle people too often, Robert Whalen is going to be next. Then we're going to go to John Dora, William Kofod, Jenny Pina, Thomas Festa, Doug Van Hooser, and then I'll do that again in a little while. So Robert Whalen.
Thank you.
Thanks. I always wonder what I'm going to read. And because this started with an angel poem, I pull this up and it's called Last Night. Last night, you came to me in a dream as an angel hiding her wings behind her, seemingly afraid to unfold them into the sky. You were inviting me to go somewhere I yearned to go, but for some reason I hesitated. When I awoke, and for the entire day I can think of nothing except feathers brushing my skin. Thank you. And the second one, I have been a therapist for more than 45 years, and I've always used poems. And there is a school of thought in the New England area amongst medical folks. It's now become courses that they teach to encourage health professionals to write poems about their work. So it's good on both sides of the window there. This is called Always Home. In the enveloping dark, still water runs clear, raindrops quenching the thirst of gravity. Without light, there is no difference between falling and flying. All spirits wander, boundless, with purpose becoming the only compass that transforms it into a journey. Fear is the inability to love without expectation of arrival. Forever is now. You are always home. Thank you.
What was that image in that poem again? It feels like flying and falling feel the same without light, or
And without light, there is no difference between flying and falling.
I like that a lot. That really grabbed me. Everybody else? Yeah, that Chris Stapleton has a song out where he says it feels like flying until you hit the bottom or something like that. He's talking about drug use, and I know they're different, but that was just a great image. Very, very well done. I'm going to let somebody sneak in here, and then we'll go on to John Dora here in a moment. Hi, Alexandra. We're going to let you get settled in for just a moment, and then we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, John, go ahead.
Thank you, Glenn, for the invitation. Hi, everybody. I'm reading from beautiful Southwest Illinois, not too far from St. Louis. I'm a Mississippi/Louisiana transplant. I've been in this area for about 10 years. So the first poem that I will read, well, it may be the only poem because it's rather long. Not that long, but I'll read one. This comes from a series of poems called Lesson Plans, Riptide, and this is part one. Lesson Plans, Riptide. Always due on Thursday, like blood draw, names checked off in military precision. I write tiny, nasty notes under daily objectives to make sure someone's reading. Feedback, I never receive it. Monday, students are silly putty. They do anything I ask, but without gusto. Weekends are tedious work for young learners. They challenge waves and hang out at the beach. No homework. Torture myself, please. Pick your poison, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Cafeteria duty at 7. Cattle call for breakfast. Cold corn flakes in little wax cardboard boxes. Sugar water with colored dyes and the essence of fruit. White milk and chocolate. Trading wampum. Facsimile egg McMuffin for cinnamon swirl in cellophane wrapper. Industrial foodstuffs. One half-ass attempt at offering something hot. Pancakes and link sausages. Chanel tells Taylor they look like his dick. Activity period. Channel 1 News. Teen-driven propaganda. Buy Nike shoes to stand a chance at being cool. The calm before the storm. Heads down like useless buoys. Strong currents, rip tides carry bodies parallel to the shore. Not sure if my lifeguard skills can save them. First period biology, required course, basic swimming. Darlene reminds me that she ain't cutting up no frog. She'd rather take a 0. I remind her there are options, like dissection on the computer. Oh, Lord, I'm so sick of computers. I tell her I sympathize. She tells me no one died. Third period chemistry, elective, intermediate swimmers, proclivity to deeper stuff. Jake informs me that today's surfboards are constructed of polyurethane or polystyrene covered with layers of fiberglass cloth and polyester or epoxy resin. His Uncle Bill died in Oahu on the North Shore when a board hit him in the head. Fifth period biostatistics, a mini course for students who love numbers and really deep water. Dr. Box likes to brag about courses his school offers that expand horizons. Advanced swimmers venture out too far, and sometimes they never come back. Life preservers are required, but you can't enforce what you don't see. Bus duty. The Spanish teacher and I huff bus fumes for 25 minutes every day after school. It loosens up our neck muscles after a stressful day at the beach. A free buzz. Hopefully, the fuel is lead free. Staff meeting. He might as well be using a bullhorn. Minutes click away like slow molasses. He likes to hear himself talk. He reminds us for the third time, lesson plans are not optional. Thank you.
Thank you. I like those chapter poems, you know. It's a good way to be able to hold that continuity for that long form. Very, very nice. Try to imagine the line breaks as you were going along, and you read so fluidly that was. I stumbled a couple of times in that, but it was. I'm sure that would really sing on paper. William Kofod.
I did it. I'm unmuted.
There you are. Thank you, John. I'm sorry, John. Was that your first reading with us? I think.
Yes, it was.
Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge that we're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, and I hope that you come back many times.
I will.
Okay, William.
I live about 40 or 50 miles from a very active poetry community, and since I get up at 3 in the morning to go to work, I can't afford to go down there and still get sleep. So I wrote this poem about that. It's called Too Far. Quiet standing in the afternoon light, lifting my eyes up to the sky, I spread my wings and upward I fly, leaving below the shadow covering the land. Quickly I fly across the mountains high, my wings glittering in the evening sun. As the night taking the land beneath, I travel fast and high unto you. Time too brief for us together be. As the night steals into the sky, taking away the light I need, our time together that can only be in the light where I can fly. My wings of day, not of night, too soon for us must I take flight. Again to lift into the light, winging away from you I must. Again returning across the mountains high and down into the shadows of night, to fold my wings and lower my eyes, be bound to the ground by the night, the dark of night that takes you from me, stealing the light where we can be,
Here you go.
taking
Just get
from
on it and you
me
need
my
to say,
wings of
excuse
flight.
me.
So with you I cannot be.
Unmute.
Something's wrong.
Carolyn, I muted your mic because he was in the middle of a reading, but you did successfully unmute it. So when it's your turn, it'll be there. Okay.
Oh, wait, let's get to make sure that this thing is up.
Let's give them a second to get
There.
their sound.
There, we've got it. Now he's talking. Let him know what's happening.
Hey, Glenn.
Okay. Hi.
It's McGregor, although I'm using my wife's computer, so call me Carolyn.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just gonna kind of. Okay, I'm gonna mute you right now, and then you'll have to just click the unmute when you come up in the reading. Okay.
Sure.
All right. William.
That's amusing. I try to do open mics for this sort of thing. Seems part of it. Truthfully, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm writing poetry. I can't believe I've had 30 poems published in 9 different publications. But I always wonder if anyone actually notices, anyone will care, and if a century from now anyone will remember. And this poem is about that. It's called Arrow in the Sun.
Okay.
In the dark of night, in dim flickering of candlelight, working carefully on the shaft of the arrow to take flight, smoothing it of all air to ease the travel of its flight, with a poem, I can't say my own words, with a point to pierce the night from the darkness towards light, taking ribbon clean and pure, forming words with care there, fixing to the shaft's end, words to fly into the night. Before the rise of morning sun, going forth in the night, taking bow and the shaft with the words to take flight. From the stars guidance take, learning where to take my aim, where it first will begin in the dawning of new day. Waiting there within the dark, finding peace with all that is, becoming one with the task to perform at first light. Taking stave and the string, bending and together fitting them, putting the arrow to the string, turning now towards the east, raising the bow with the sun, pulling back and taking aim, becoming one with the shot, loose the shaft into the light. Loose the words into new day, going forth before me, flying up into the light, traveling where I will not be. Shaft of arrow in the light, flying into the day that dawns before me, the light of day where I will not be. Lowering bow and closing eyes, wondering if I may be somewhere within the new day that my words may be found. On shaft of wood with ribbon tied, words thereupon wrote, shot into the morning light. Turning now, I walk away, going back into the night, where the dark will take me, being not in the day.
It doesn't surprise me that you've had 30 poems published in 9 journals. You know, a lot of people that write poems that rhyme don't do it well. And one thing that I noticed about your work, if you don't mind me just pausing for a second to acknowledge this, is that you'll have these stanzas where you have these hard rhymes, and there's a sort of a tension that starts to build up, because in the reader we've got this rhyme, and then you've got the rhyme, then you hit it again, and then all of a sudden you'll release that with a line that ends that doesn't follow that format. And I think it's the mature poet that understands that the reader needs these tension releases in the language that you do so well. And a lot of times when you have rhyming poems, people think it makes their poems easier because all they have to do is find a word that rhymes. But it's not, because I think the educated reader of poetry expects those to stand up and they look for things like language that is very specific, where a word is used in a place where another word just would not do. It's not just a sloppily thing that's thrown together for meter and rhyme. I've read a lot of your work, and I think that you're just getting better. And the way that you pull this off on paper, especially in the written form, is really good. And I appreciate you coming to the reading today to do that. Don't sell yourself short. You know, you're a poet like the rest of us, and you deserve it. You'll probably get in many more before you're done, my friend.
The intriguing thing to me is I write most of these in a single draft, and I rarely spend more than an hour on a poem.
Well, sometimes it just comes out that way, right? I mean, I have poems like that. The poem lays out, and then it very little needs to be done with it. Then I'll write 15 of them that end up in the trash. So some of them start out rough, and then you have to go back and, you know, just everybody's different. Jenny.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm happy to be back here. The first poem I'd like to read to you is called I Missed the Bus. You're in high school now. No more missing the damn bus. My mother in her pink velour bathrobe steers our car downhill toward the stop sign. I roll my eyes, crank up the radio. Karen Ann Quinlan remains alive, yet completely unresponsive. It has been 9 months since doctors removed her from a ventilator. Karen's senior portrait groans inside my brain. I keep telling her to scram, get lost. I don't look like you, no matter what you and everyone says. Same long brown hair parted in the middle, sure. Similar lips and jawline, but you are 7 years older and your eyes are brown. My mother clucks her tongue. Did you hear me, Virginia? Outside, snowflakes swirl as wind-sick whirligigs. Their ice-tipped edges pinging the window shield glass could be good luck wedding rice. There is no reason in this world I will ever end up like you, Karen. I will never starve myself for days to fit into a dress. I would never gulp down gin and tonic and Valium. My future holds no permanent vegetative state. My eyes have promised me to always move in the same direction. The car begins spinning slowly, then faster and faster. I am riding the playground merry-go-round, feet of other children pounding beside me, pushing me too fast. My mother's palms are beating up a useless steering wheel. I found a curled up dead bird under the slide I tried to unfurl and stand back up on her 3-toed feet. Is there no cure for a fetal position? The car lurches and halts, quaking in the middle of a hemlock hedge, like a canoe on a choppy lake. I am laughing. I knew I wasn't like you, Karen. I told you fate doesn't have an appearance. Or maybe I am sobbing. My mother's bottom lip is bright red moving. A scream from the radio. Attention, squall warning. And this other one I'm going to read because it's sort of a fun fantasy poem, and hopefully it might make you laugh, which we could all use. The title is Voyages. Swish of red doors and I am in. It is that easy to board the famous bridge of the USS Enterprise. Place beeps like crazy, just like it did on TV. A sea of buttons, red, green, and yellow. I might push them all. Giant view screen of space, stars and planets morphing into white arrows, vanishing with warp speed. She is there alone, relaxing in her chair, the communications officer. Gold hoop earrings, jewelry so proud and big. Tight mid-calf black boots planted on the back of the captain's chair, spinning it. Lieutenant Uhura sipping Jim Beam on ice. Trademark hair updo, confident mouth, those look you in the eye eyes. She hands me the bottle. Don't let the turquoise color fool you. Romulan ale tastes like rubber. I dump earthen whiskey down the hatch. The lieutenant grins, arches an eyebrow more naturally than Spock. Flares red fire, a drag from her cigarette. Her smoke rings begin tap dancing across the helmsman's station. Dr. McCoy can't really cure cancer, you know. This cigarette is actually a hologram. In the late 60s, Lieutenant Uhura was the biggest deal to little girls everywhere. She doesn't know it yet, but someday she alone will inspire female astronauts. Our hero is willing to get drunk with me. I can't believe it. We do it. I stuff myself into one of her ridiculous red bell dresses. Nice material though, think graduation stole. We take turns bending over, mooning each other, high school pranking it, hysterical. She gets drunker than me, tells me how every time the captain orders her to hail Starfleet Command, she places a phone call to her cousin Sabo. Sabo owns a 24-hour taco shop in Detroit. Every time he answers, "Fuck off, Michelle," and she has to swallow her laughter like a cherry gumdrop. A Klingon vessel materializes on screen. I am always overly alarmed by enemies. The lieutenant waves it off, opens up a channel, adjusts that little silver thing she sticks in her ear. "Gowron, you little asshole. You better have my damn Girl Scout cookies." Thank you.
That was fun. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. All right. I was just about, as you were doing your first poem, I was going to comment that many of the poems that I hear you do have to do with relationships. I mean, this may be your third reading with us, and I wondered if you were putting together a collection, and then suddenly out comes Star Trek, and it was just wonderful.
Never know.
That's nice. All right, just let me catch up here. Thomas Vesta, then Doug Van Hooser, Eva Braden, Laura McGinnis, Michael Watterson, Tom Kazas, Sandra, John McCullen, Linda, Jessica Dawson, Alexandra Coates. That's the order that we're heading in, and next will be Thomas.
Hi, Glenn. Thanks for having me again. First poem I'm going to read is due out just in a few days in the May issue of Chronogram. The poem's called Snowbound Evening Light. It's a short one. We have been here all along, so it will occur to us on the other side when we reach out our fingertips like leaves for the last light, laughing. We have never been. Thank you. The second poem is called Words for. I write these words so you might hear them, as if in your own voice, writing of you till it makes something happen. As if anticipation could produce melody for an unheard song. Those strangers keep wandering into the room, playing their unstrung instruments loudly, loudly. As if you left me stranded, alone in a remote country where I don't know the language or customs of greeting. As if all song began in fire and ended in utterance of your name, and the short interval between if and flame were a flint struck in a ritual we are yet to invent. Thank you.
Very nice. Yeah, Doug, you're going to be next. Thank you, Thomas, for coming again. And flint struck. I'm going to save that word. I'm going to keep that one in my pocket. I like that. Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, I'm Doug Van Hooser. I'm in southern Wisconsin, where today happens to be a very nice day. The first poem I'm going to read is One Thing is for Certain. Ignorance is such a good friend. It pats me on the back. I move ahead, confounded by the many trails to take. I look back, drag the past to plow the future. There were seeds I dropped without sowing, never nurtured to grow. A pile of plywood and 2x4s, no nails, and just a rough sketch. Building takes planning, knowledge it takes walls to hold up a roof. Load bearing a mechanical and emotional explanation. Not knowing is an umbrella collapsed in the wind. The truth, a relentless rain. Like the ground, there is only so much I absorb. The runoff floods the rivers and makes navigation susceptible to what lurks below the murk. Search in the dark leads to trip and fall. My friend picks me up, slaps dirt from my clothes, gives me a tissue to blow dust from my nose. I stumble forward, the needle missing on the compass. The second poem is entitled Disappointment. Disappointment slouches in the chair, stares at the clock as it repeats itself, and I throw the calendar on the stack in the corner as if it were a snowbank, and spring will come. Lost opportunities do not melt. They daydream, haunt like a shadow that shrinks or grows as you change direction and life shifts AM to PM. Regret puts on pounds, effort's knees buckle, the day's tinnitus swells, an incessant reminder. This is a no parking zone. A hollow echo does not fade.
Nice. We are a little ahead of schedule. I just want to ask, who's reading a good poetry book that they could suggest? Anybody reading something new? Go ahead and unmute yourself and just talk.
I am. I accidentally discovered Grace Schulman this week, and I just adore her. It's Schulman, and she's been around a long time. She's in her 80s, and I just am really taken with her. Her latest book is The Marble Bed.
All right.
I have just discovered a poet named Jane Mead, who writes a marvelous book. One of the poems is The Lord and the General Din of the World. So I recommend Jane Mead.
Thank you.
I want to recommend Bonfire Opera by Danusha Lemaris. She's had poems recently in Writer's Almanac, and she's just amazing. I met her initially at a workshop with Ellen Bass, and she'd been a student of Ellen's, but now she's definitely up there on her own.
Well, I just found a cute little book. I think it's terrific. It's called Sophia and Mr. Walter Whitman, and it's written by Penelope Scamby Shout, Schott. It's written in the voice of her dog, and every poem incorporates quotes from Whitman. It's just extremely well done. It's hilarious if you go through it.
Oh, neat. All right. Anyone
Glenn?
else? Yeah.
Thomas James Tate, I'm sorry, Dome of the Hidden Pavilion. These are like narrative poems. They have a really weird twist at the end. You never know where he's going to go. And a friend gave me this book, and I'm a slow reader, and she gave me this book Tuesday, and I finished it. It's really intriguing if you like that sort of thing.
Sure.
I was just going to recommend a few things that I've been reading and teaching. I've been discovering Alice Oswald's poetry. Her collection Falling Awake has some remarkable and to my mind really unique poems. And then Terrence Hayes' American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin is an extraordinary collection I'd highly recommend. And Jericho Brown's The Tradition. I imagine some of you have encountered that as well, but these are three things that I'm teaching actually in my classes, and that I would recommend everybody take a look at.
Great, thank you. That's wonderful. And
I
anybody?
would recommend one.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I would recommend, and you probably know this poet, George Bilger. He wrote a book called The Good Kiss, and I have it right here. I just pulled it out, so I don't know if you can see it. But it's a wonderful book of of poems, and he's just very witty and it's just thoroughly enjoyable. So George Bilger, his name is.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody have a book coming out that they want to plug? John, you have to unmute yourself. Can't hear you. You're miming to the choir.
I have one, 2020, the year of the coronavirus. It's up on Amazon, and it's fairly recent. So it's a collection of things, not all about the virus, but what was going on in my mind and everything during the virus, during the lockdown.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Oh, James, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, just really quick.
Yeah, I mentioned the Tower of Babel book, but but just came out is Fire, a book of mine of contemplative or almost religious, or are they poems called Fires of Heaven, Poems of Faith and Sense. And that's also Shanty Arts of Maine. So that's something to look at. Thanks so much.
And then James, Bethel, did you have one?
Yeah, just a repeat plug. I've got a collection of S. Rain coming from Cervena Barber Press in the fall. And I wanted to recommend this little tome by a lovely woman by the name of Chloe Honum. Is her name, and she's an extraordinary poet. It's a short little collection. It's her first book, and it's worth a read.
Thank you. You guys have heard me say the tide raises all the ships together, or however that saying goes. We all rise together, so definitely check those people out. And if everybody would just go back to muting yourselves, and we're going to move on to Elia, Braden, and I'd also invite anyone who wants to go to our Facebook page and post your book. If you have a book coming out, don't worry about it if it's from another press or whatever. If I can help you, you can post on there and it'll give you a little more exposure. Go ahead. I'm good with that. Elia, you'll need to unmute your mic.
Got it. Well, since you were talking about books, I'll read one from my book. And first I'll do the one that was in Prolific Press last year. I think it was the spring issue, and it's called Shoot the Horse You Rode In On. Disassemble. Don't flip ahead to the next chapter. No, do. You can't unmake history's bed, so lie in it. Your footnote 323. Embrace the freedom of invisibility. Inside everyone, a filing cabinet of secret identities. Your face is a handbag of lipstick aliases. Scratch that beige-haired barfly and poof, a stalker. You, a cough away from a scream. What's a secret? Something you tell only one person at a time. Google, starring as Sweeney Todd, strips, slits, dismembers you. Confettied resume of who gave what to whom, how much, and when. The bulbs you planted are all the legacy you'll get. Let that be enough joy to melody a dance. Thank the gods who bestowed uncertainty to eradicate boredom. Climb aboard your lover's motorcycle and journey toward a new name. Your wedding ring is the answer to the wrong question. Thank you. And this is my chapbook, Open the Fist, which came out last summer from Finishing Line Press. And I designed the cover art, which was fun. And this is the last poem in the book. It's called When Joy Comes. When joy comes, don't raise the curtains, throw a party, invite the neighbors, set off fireworks. No, spit twice with furtive glances left and right. Mutter Kinahora, your Yiddish grandmother's invocation against the evil eye. Your DNA cringes with the genetic imprint of Cossacks setting fire to your Russian ancestors' wedding party, grabbing the virgin bride, yanking her dark rope of hair, twisting her hooked nose. The devil jeers, don't be too happy. The proverbs warn, Pride goeth before fall. Your mother's punishment. Take away whatever you love most. You hoard your golden apples until they wither in your dark cellar. You drape a tent of rags around the fire of your poetry until it suffocates, burns out. You hang your art inside a citadel, raise the drawbridge, fill the moat, and still friends drift away, jobs end, lovers betray. Risk the ricochet of fate, taunt the gods with your raucous joy. If we are to lose everything in this life, and for sure we will with our last breath, then let us rejoice, blast the trumpets, dance and love. Yes, let's love as if this is all there is, this half-mad falling for and falling into, flying in the face of, oh no you don't, and I told you so. Yes, if we are to lose it all, then let's first make sure that we have something, no, everything to lose. Thank you. And thank you, Glenn, for putting on this poetry reading. It's great to be here.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming today. Is this your first reading with us today?
Yes, it is. I had a
Oh.
conflict the last time, but yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate that.
Yes, my pleasure.
If there's anybody that needs to go because of their schedule, I see some people dropping out. If you haven't read yet and you have to go, let me know. We're all very patient. At least I think we are. I'm going to speak for everybody. We are. Laura McGinnis. Are you here? Or did she's not here right now? I'm going to put a pin in that one. Michael Watterson. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. Pleasure. I always look forward to your readings every month.
Thank you.
Just a couple of short poems. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There are other Pittsburghs around the country. I currently live in California. There's a Pittsburgh, California. But the unique thing, one of the unique things about Pittsburgh, PA, is that it's spelled with an H. It has an H at the end of it, B-U-R-G-H, which is an old spelling. This poem appeared in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette newspaper, one of the rare newspapers that publishes poetry every now and then. This came from about an issue about 5 or 6 years ago. This is called The H in Pittsburgh. Height of archaic hindsight, heirloom appendage, hangover from Scotch Irish, hailing from Highland heather and Hibernian harbors, held hostage by graveyard shifts in heart-stopping heat. Hunkies who followed, seared faces streaked gray as the stack-spewed dawn steam whistles delivery, hell's recess bell, proclaiming here's how. To make a Boilermaker drop a shot glass of whiskey into a draft and watch it dive down to the bottom. One or two and you forget, heaps of slag, hearths igniting the night, hell with the lid off. Homestead holdouts, hireling hoodlums, hammer and tongs hate hanging on in the slow, cold fire of rust. Hills and hollows of home, exhausted sigh, ghost breath. Thank you. And the next one is appeared way back in the year 1988. Am I really that old? Wanted. It's called Wanted in Vermont. It was inspired by it used to be a column in the Sunday newspaper here in the Bay Area where I live called Grab Bag, and it was trivia. And one of the lines of trivia that appeared many years ago was that in Vermont, it's illegal to paint your horse. So this is called Wanted in Vermont. In Vermont, it's illegal to paint your horse. I didn't start out painting horses. I started painting Holsteins. Cows are simple, slow and broad and slow-eyed. You draw on a fantasy, work back to an ink blot and fill in the cow. Horses are a different color. Once I started, I couldn't stop. Once I started, I couldn't stop once. I painted supercharged engines hitched to gleaming muscle cars. I painted smoky voices, high silver cirrus, fly and shoe, thistle and nettle. I painted purple mounts of majesty with Appaloosa withers. I nursed each wobble-legged foal through bouts of colic, and when a paint broke a leg, I painted a pistol to put it out of misery. In darkness they gather, flanks of wind-blown water, tails brushing the sky, hot breath on my face as they lower shy heads to graze, tugging out grass around my feet, buckeye eyes heavy-lidded with contentment. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Casas. You have to unmute your mic.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah. Thank you, Glenn. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I have a couple of poems I'll read. This first one is called DNA, and I wrote it, I just looked at the date, and I wrote it about 20 years ago when my kids were young, and I had them, we had played all day together, and finally at the end of the day, I got them put down and everything, and I just flopped down on the couch, and this poem is about that experience. It's called DNA. I love the lulling sound of tires running over rain-slick streets, the crunching, clean music of someone in a hurry to get home or to get away from home, to take the next step in a desperate day, point A to point B, 21st century style. I love the drowsy comfort of a soft couch on a lazy Sunday afternoon, the wind billowing curtains into a white room with oak floors, rows of books, and a blue and white vase sprouting zinnia, cosmos, and baby's breath. I love a long yawn, the stretching of limbs, a clock that measures time in rhythmic ticks. To someone, somewhere, long ago, I owed a debt of gratitude for these simple pleasures, for surely this richly textured world was shaped by a dream handed down in time. I can thank, perhaps, a half-naked, jut-jawed Neanderthal, shivering in a damp, unmapped hole, hunkering near moss-covered rock, fearful of lightning, thunder, of big-toothed mammals, fearful even of his shadows, who so desperately wanted a safe, quiet afternoon with a full belly, free from bugs and boogeymen, that he carried me here, generation by generation, to this day, to this moment, through the sheer force of his imagination, through the sheer force of his genetic will. Thank you. And this next one is a little bit more whimsical poem, and it's a little more recent, and it's called Packing. And I wrote it for my wife, basically, and she accuses me of being OCD, and she's completely the opposite of OCD. So I wrote this poem before we were taking a trip. 2 weeks before we leave, it's called Packing. 2 weeks before we leave, I start planning, scribbling notes on paper, khakis and loafers for the Monday morning flight, a polo and shorts for the ball game that evening, gym shorts and a tee for a morning run, something dressy for dinner and window shopping, until all 2 weeks are outlined like a PowerPoint to the CEO. 2 days before we leave, I do laundry, wash, dry, and fold each item, then pack it all, gift wrap style, like a present to myself, in the big suitcase with wheels. Shoes, socks, and underwear fill the niches, the cubby holes. 30 minutes before we leave, she throws her shit in a bag and remembers her hairbrush out on the way out the door. 2 days later, I'm kicking myself because I forgot a belt or my sandals or a gift I intended to give to a friend while she reads a book, looks up to stare out a window. That's it. Thank you.
Can you reread the last stanza for me? Because my mic interrupted you, I think.
Okay. 30 minutes before we leave, she throws her shit in a bag and remembers her hairbrush on the way out the door. 2 days later, I'm kicking myself because I forgot a belt or my sandals with a gift I intended to give to a friend while she reads a book, looks up to stare out a window, and yawns. You unfrozen? Did anybody freeze?
Oh, I got you now. I heard that one. Oh, that's great. Something about that 30 minutes before we go, your shit in the bag. I just about interrupted you with this. It's so funny. Oh my goodness. I love that. That's just hilarious. All right. Sandra.
Thank you. It's nice to be here my first time, and I found you guys because I had a haiku in Haiku Journal, and thank you for that, Glenn. So I'm going to read a few haiku and then one poem. I wrote over 400 haiku last year. It's one of the ways I coped with the pandemic and sheltering. So I'll read the one from Haiku Journal first, and then some of the others. Lonely, lonely night. The old cat curls in my lap, claims me for her own. Wind blows the mustard, swarm of waterfowl circling, tail in its teeth. A poem on my tongue, I make notes on a napkin, salsa scented words.
Salsa scented.
Everyone feels pain. Suffering is optional. Buddhism cliff notes. Bread lines round the school. $5 for a homeless man. Twin tears of gratitude. And the last haiku, thank you. The last haiku is rain lashes the trees. Florets blush, crimson and cream. I revisit my youth.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to stop you there.
Okay.
We do limit this to 2, but
that includes haiku. Okay.
yeah,
Good
but
to know.
you absolutely. Oh, haiku are, they're just as important as anything else. I love the salsa scented words. That something about that was great, because you know what it does. That's the beauty of haiku. So few words, but it just brings you there. And that just transports you, that line just puts you at the table, right? Or whatever. It's just great. Thank you so much. Please come back.
I will.
And do this again, because we would love to have you. John McMullen.
Okay, I'm in one of the first poems that I had published years ago was in Inwood, Indiana, and I chose that because I grew up in the Inwood section at the top of Manhattan Island. And Glenn took it anyhow, even though I wasn't from Inwood, Indiana. I'm in Jefferson Valley, New York. I'm the poet laureate of all things of the town of Yorktown, New York. It's a community of 36,000 people in Westchester County. So one poem that was published in Poetry Quarterly, Alphabet Crudity. Ever notice that people on the internet use abbreviations to say things they wouldn't say out loud in polite company? RTFM, read the fucking manual, to someone who constantly asks inane questions about computer or software. ROLMAO, rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off after a joke or funny happening. The less profane than its big brother, ROFLMFAO. OMG, oh my God, is acceptable. OMFG beckons the lightning bolts. Maybe the internet allows us to become coarser. But when I see these things, I often want to reply, STFU. And one I just wrote recently, Walking Fowler. Yesterday, I took Fowler the Wonder Dog out for a walk at 8 a.m. It was 61 degrees. Today I did the same thing. It was 31 degrees, 30 degrees colder. About 3 years ago, I wrote a poem, Oklahoma Weather, which I happened to read the last time. And you can listen to the poem by clicking if you see the printed thing. In it, I recounted being in Oklahoma 55 years ago. The temperature could swing 30 to 40 degrees within a few hours. Crass New Yorkers who had never seen anything like it and hated being there anyhow called it fucking Oklahoma weather. And in the poem, I've said that the same weather had come to New York. What I didn't say explicitly was that the temperature swing was caused by climate change. If you didn't understand the point then, you were perhaps slow in the uptake or simply uninformed. If you don't get it now in 2021, you have your head in the sand, are climate change denier, or just plain dumb. So speak Zoroaster. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Appreciate that. We have 3 more readers coming. Linda from Linda's iPhone, Jessica Dawson, and Alexandra Coates in that order. I don't think Linda is really Linda, but I'm going to call on Linda's iPhone. You have to unmute yourself.
There it is. Okay.
There. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm fine. This is Linda Embler in Wichita, Kansas. I'm going to read 2 poems. Both of them were published in Poetry Quarterly. The first one called 9/11. In his luggage that did not complete the soar was a beautiful memory of having once flown to Holland, a more pleasant memory than the one which he will never bring home. Today, taverns have turned into sacred places of prayer. The sky is silent, but for the sound of weeping clouds. Poets use terms like gone to eternal rest and found the big sleep. I also know this poet's song will now never be completely sung. I wonder what we will call this day in 100 years, and if its potency will be diminished. And in all the days that follow this Tuesday, I will hear his voice in my head, that voice all others have forgotten. I'll open the door and suddenly be out on windy Kansas plains, sighting all the other lonely people. I'll say this moment must not rule me, and sometimes that will be the truth. The next poem is called Time. Oh, okay. Tell me to stop, or that's
No,
your rule. Thank you, I've got it, thank you. This one's called Time. In the dark of night, he crept, deft and quick, this Robin Hood. He must have been a thief of time because I never saw him. But one day when I looked in the mirror, I realized he'd been there many times. After all these years, I grasped just how much of my youth he had taken, the robber of so many of my minutes. Yet he left to me a pile of memories, of faces and conversation, a pile growing larger here. So he does give back more. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for reading the 9/11 poem. I couldn't help but remember after 9/11, I'm reading The Slush Pile, and these poems just start coming in, and then they start sort of flowing in, and then they're just piling up on each other, and we're just all 9/11 poems. And we took so few of them because we didn't want the Poetry Quarterly issues to just, it wasn't a themed issue, right? It was, and I just remember those days of just sitting there reading The Slush Pile, crying over these poems, and it just so, I mean, poetry just has a way of so much pain, and at that time, and then it's just amazing to hear that. There's something about poetry, it just sucks you right back to the moment, you know, when something happens, right? and there's not much you can do about it. You're sort of a helpless traveler to the poem. Jessica Dawson. So Jessica, you'll have to unmute. There you go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jessica Dawson, and today I'm going to read a collage published in Poetry Quarterly, winter 2019. Collage. It's raining. The droplets against the window I can feel on my skin. Someone is saying, God has a quill and is writing my story. On a scroll unraveling before my eyes, swirls of stones are arranged in designs on shores, left behind with a set of footprints wandering away. An old woman touches a canvas with her paintbrush dipped in cerulean blue. A man strokes charcoal across a page and calls it the sky. The mind and heart wrestle with one another. Patience walks with patience. I clutch my nightgown as my feet touch each stone along the waters. I lift my cup to drink the pain of a Christ and feel the thorns and the slivers speaking into my remains. Opinions roll in only to roll out again. Mountain reflects mountain. Trees rise slowly as I fall into the ground and sleep and rise again. Okay, the second one I'll read haiku from Haiku Journal number 43. Beautiful glacier, standing above small city, eyes touch snow-clothed hills. I apologize, I'm not physically able to raise my arms to cheer everybody else's reading, but I'm cheering in my heart for everyone else.
Well, thank you. And thank you for your poetry. It's just lovely. Truly, just you really have something there. Yeah, you have been submitting to our journals for a long time now.
Since 2015, I believe.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, I hope we never lose you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
you're just like a little treasure, and I know that can't make it into everything, but you're consistently good, and we appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Alexandra, she has been smiling along all of this time. We're down to you.
All right, so this poem was just accepted for an issue of Dawn Treader, but that should not appear until, I guess, maybe 6 to 8 months from now. So I'm sort of keeping it under my hat. This is a ghazal, Seeker's Ghazal. Walk along the driving, swelling river and climb until it gradually grows narrower inland. Climb onwards with your wounded friend and trust and laugh. Behind the falls to cross, go hand in hand. Climb. Past stretching trees and heavy boughs, touching needles, moss, onto rocks and boulders hugged in sand. Climb in weakness, breathless, light-headed hesitance, floating faint upwards, higher, where colors turn pale and bland. Climb through clouds of freezing fog to find sun's blinding plane. There, dear seeker, to heal and understand. Climb. And then if there's time for a second one,
Oh yeah, please.
Yeah. So there's either a more recent one, which is an interlocking rivière, or would you prefer a golden shovel?
I don't know. We'll poll. Let's poll the audience. All those who want the golden shovel. Oh, I think your golden shovel got it.
Okay. Right, so here it is. So this is based on a Dickinson poem, which I'm sure everyone knows. A word is dead when it is said, some say. One morning, I opened my eyes to a crow smiling at me. Could it be? What is the word? But he cocked his head, then flew. Who is the communicator? Is he someone dead? What a strange morning it is when there is only a window between me and it. To think this could be happening is perhaps metaphysical, it is said. To belong to the worlds of some poets such as Poe, who might say, nevermore. But this crow, I believe, said, get out of bed. To say such with a glint in its eye. It was so natural yet strange, just that he was watching me. It begins to feel like life may be more than it seems. To ponder, someone behind that veil could live through unvoiced thoughts, so that we might do more with a day. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that didn't read? I don't think so. I think. Oh, you didn't read. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Am I on?
Yes.
Hi, poets. Good afternoon. My name is McGregor Frank, although I'm not identified that on your screens.
Oh,
The
yes.
first poem is called Window. The title comes from one of Rilke's Duino elegies. I've forgotten which one, number 2 or number 3. But Rilke says, or as you were passing an open window, a violin was giving itself to someone. All that was a mandate, but were you worthy of it? And thus my poem, Window. A Puget Sound chorale group tripped out to whale sing, returning the favor, so to serenade. And the humpbacks applauded the concert, turning, circling the showboat, singing their whale song in return. This is the song we long for when we sail out to whale meeting. It connects us to the chain we thought we'd lost long since in overmastering Earth. But the sea creatures tender a gesture of trust across the aquamarine, which we do not deserve. We know our history. Our presence at the GAM implies an alliance the choristers singly cannot promise, and together will not honor. And though the singing of the whales suggests they will forgive our harvesting of all that lamp oil, we remain in the dark, knowing we must return to harbor when singing resolves to silence. And yet, sometimes a window opens between the watery world and the world in air, or the smallest local aperture appears when the ineffable passes close to the physical, and we can sense the possibility of that longer voyage we have failed to take, but which in time, with luck, we may yet embark upon. Thanks.
Did you have another one?
I do. Poem is called Chrysanthemums. But the angels of the inmost heaven are not clothed. They shine in their simplicity as most profound. The stars of such a heaven even let no light slip, but hoard each particle to themselves, and still they are the brightest, holding most. What glows on earth, I think, is accident. At least I know it gives no light away. and so I stand transfixed before the white chrysanthemums.
Thank you. That was nice. Such a quiet poem, the chrysanthemum poem.
Yeah, there is no free lunch, right?
I mean, there's a place for that. I really like it a lot. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video, and then I'm gonna make a couple of announcements, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, one moment.
Yes.
Thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much for the opportunity.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so
meeting
much.
all of you.
Thanks again, Glenn.
You're welcome. Thank you, William.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Glenn.
Bye,
Bye.
Jenny. Bye,
Bye.
Alexandra. Bye, John. Bye, Denise. Thank you for coming.
Bye. Thanks
Sean,
so much.
Tom.
Hi, Glenn.
Oh, I never did change your name, Lynette. All right, so we're getting there. Thank you guys all so much, and I'll be uploading this to Facebook, so you can come back and watch it later or share it with your classroom. Maybe Thomas will make your students suffer. You know. All
You
right.
better be listening to me drone on.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Again.
Bye. See ya. Thanks for coming. Thanks for calling in.